What is going on, lads? In today's video, I'm going to be bringing you every midfielder that you can buy on Sorare that is going to be playing at the World Cup. Leave a like if you do enjoy, subscribe if you're new, and let's get straight into things. Like I mentioned in the first video, it's not all about just buying for the World Cup for me. It's players that, yeah, if they play in the World Cup, great, but do they have longer term utility? We are kicking it off with South Korea. South Korea normally deploy a 4-2-3-1, so you're looking at two holding mids, maybe a 10, and even wingers that could potentially play there. Lee Kang-in or Kang-in Lee could be one of them. I really do like him. He plays for Mallorca right now. He started off the season pretty well, takes set pieces. He's somebody that's like been on my radar anyway as an under 23 gallery. And yeah, the World Cup could be a great springboard for him in terms of showing the world what he can do. He's very, very technical. So yeah, for me, Kang-in's probably the standout there. In terms of Uruguay, we've got Bentancur, Amrabat, Facundo Torres, Valverde, De La Cruz, Vecino. There's some really good midfielders there, to be honest. They play a 4-4-2. So you're looking at two centre mids. You know, you could potentially put Valverde on the wing, but I don't think he will. De La Cruz can play on the wing as well, to be fair. So for me, the most nailed on is Bentancur and Valverde, to be honest. De La Cruz potentially as well. But in terms of younger talent, Facundo Torres playing in the MLS for Orlando City. I've been lucky enough to watch him play in real life. He's a very, very good player. Whether he plays a lot during the World Cup is unknown, but I do really, really like him. Next up, we've got Ghana, and only three midfielders on the game that I could find: Thomas Partey, Kudus, and Sulemana. Three really solid options, to be honest. Ghana normally play a 4-2-3-1, so you could probably see Kudus in the 10, Partey maybe in CDM, Sulemana on one of the wings. I know it says forward here for Sulemana. That is his new card, but he was previously a midfielder. That's why I've included him in here, because you could technically go and buy his midfielder card. Kudus is probably the standout here, although he is pretty expensive, but you know, he's starting for Ajax right now. If he's going to start for Ghana as well at the World Cup, you have to expect him to be pretty pricey, but I'm liking what I'm seeing from him recently, especially in the Champions League. Next up is Portugal. They normally play a 4-2-3-1 as well, and they've got a load of midfielders on Sorare, to be honest. Vitinha, Bruno Fernandes, Otavio, Paulina, João Mario, Carvalho, Guedes, Mateus Nunes, and Danilo Pereira. Whether all these actually make the World Cup squad is unknown. The standouts are, of course, Bruno Fernandes, but there's hardly any of his cards, of course. Mateus Nunes is most definitely going to make the squad. Vitinha is probably very nailed. Danilo Pereira, even though I don't think he's a great player, he most probably does make the squad as well. And Guedes, Otavio, they probably all do. I'm not sure if João Mario is going to. I guess William Carvalho does as well. But yeah, there's nothing like standing out to me here. Mateus Nunes is a very, very talented player if you are looking for a Champions Europe player. Same for Guedes. Obviously, they're both playing for Wolves now. Paulina is also in the Premier League as well for Fulham. Otavio's probably the best priced, I would say, in terms of what you can get from him. João Mario, you could also argue you're probably going to get a good output from him club-wise for Benfica right now. Vitinha is just in and out of the PSG team, which is a little bit annoying. Does he start for Portugal in the World Cup? I probably doubt it. Next up, we have Cameroon, and they normally play a 4-3-3. We've got four midfielders to choose from. We've got Oliver Nichams playing for Swansea right now, Samuel Goet, who plays for Midtjylland in the Belgium League, Junior Onana, who's playing for Lens right now, and Nguissa, who plays for Napoli. I mean, Nguissa's L15 and L5 is looking amazing right now. So if you are a holder of him, then great. I don't know if I would be spending 0.8 ETH on him, but with those sort of stats, he will be helping you to win cards. You know, Nichams in and out of the Swansea team. I don't know too much about Goet. I know Junior Onana is a really, really talented midfielder. I think he was at Bordeaux before this. But right now, it doesn't look like he's starting games for Lens with an L5 of 31. That could definitely be injury related, don't get me wrong, but I do know he's a very, very talented midfielder. Next up is Switzerland, who normally play a 4-2-3-1. There's quite a few midfielders to choose from here, to be honest. The standout for me, though, is probably Noah Okafor, who plays for Salzburg. Although he is a forward this season, you can pick up his midfielder cards from last season. He is apparently injured right now. Oh, and it's a toothache. One of the worst injuries you can ever get. Remo Freuler's playing for Forest right now, and they're struggling. I wouldn't really be touching him. Renato Stefan's moved to the Swiss League, which I didn't really know, to be fair. I know he's at Wolfsburg last season. I'm not sure how much of a good buy he would be. Shaqiri's the best in terms of stats, of course. Whether he stays at Chicago Fire next season, who knows? But he's a very, very good MLS midfielder option to have maybe for next season. Ruben Vargas is also a decent player as well. Nothing crazy here. I'd say Noah is definitely the standout, though. Next up is Serbia, who normally play a 3-4-1-2. They've got a load of midfielders, to be fair, on Sorare. So you got Marko Grujic up here before he disappears behind my face. Filip Kostic, Ivan Ilic, Milinkovic-Savic, Lukic, and Tadic. Tadic, of course, being the standout, but there's a couple behind him that I wouldn't mind owning. Kostic being one of them. Milinkovic-Savic and Ivan Ilic are all very, very good players. Ilic, of course, being an under 23, does catch my eye a little bit. Filip Kostic as well, for that sort of price, isn't bad at all, to be honest. I know He isn't getting as many decisives as he would do playing for Frankfurt, of course. Tadic, of course, is the standout. He's going to be the main man for them, you know, alongside Vlahovic. In the World Cup, I'm probably going to scoop up the most DAs you'd have to imagine. Next up is Brazil, and we've got 4 players in the watch list: Bruno Guimaraes, Felipe Coutinho, Casemiro, and Lucas Paqueta. In terms of like nailed on starters, it's quite hard to say. I think Paqueta and Guimaraes will start. I don't think Coutinho will. To be honest, he might not even make the squad. I'm no Brazilian national team expert, but I don't know. I think that would be touch and go. Casemiro, if he's not playing for United, then does he warrant starting for Brazil? Probably not. Whilst filming this video, guys, I've realised I didn't put Fabinho in here. Of course, he does have cards for Liverpool. He's another definite option. He's definitely got scope to start in the World Cup for Brazil. Definitely keep an eye on that. I'm sorry that I didn't put that in the watch list right now. I will do that after the video. But moving on to Croatia, we've got a load of options here, to be fair. Perisic, Susic, Brozovic, who did get injured recently as well, so I'm not sure how long he's going to be out for. Lovro Majer, Nikola Vlasic, and Luka Modric. Croatia normally play a 4-3-3, so you can probably fit 3 of these into the team. Maybe 4 if Vlasic plays on the wing. Same as Perisic as well, to be honest. But yeah, even at the ripe age of 37, Modric is still doing his thing. Is he a great buy? I don't know. In terms of bang for buck, Brozovic or Susic do stand out to me. Susic, of course, being an under 23. Brozovic being a very veteran midfielder in Serie A. Majer as well is definitely somebody I'd keep an eye on, 24 years old. L5 of 57, you can pick him up for 0.4 as a rare, 0.05 as a limited, but I do really rate him, to be honest. But definitely some decent options there for that Croatia team. Next up is Morocco, who play a 4-2-3-1. We've got some decent players here. Harry, that normally plays the 10 for them, could be a decent shout at 0.1 for a rare. I've put Tarab in here just so the streets don't forget, of course. Whether he makes the World Cup squad, I'm not too sure. Amrabat's an absolute baller. He won't get you that many decisives, but if you just go watch him play, he is unbelievable. But yeah, if I had to pick one Moroccan player, it would probably be Harit, I would imagine, at that price. Next up is Canada, who normally play a 3-4-1-2. Jonathan Osorio, who plays for Toronto, is a bit of a baller, to be fair, but he hasn't been playing of late. Alistair Johnson, who I've actually watched a few times. Whilst he was at Nashville FC, he's now playing for Montreal. He has a really decent L5. Yeah, at that price, that's not bad at all. It does say he's a defender right now, but I'm pretty sure you can pick up his midfielder cards as well. And he does seem to start for Canada as well, so that could be a decent little buy. We've also got Ismail Kone down here, who's supposed to be an absolute player. There was rumours of him moving to Europe in the summer. I think Sheffield United were interested at one point. There's a few other English clubs as well. But yeah, he's supposed to be an absolute baller, so keep an eye on him. But the best player for me would probably be Eustáquio for Porto here. 25-year-old midfielder. Pick up a rare for 0.2/0.3 ETH, 0.03 as a limited. L5 of 57 to be fair in his last 5. So it's nice to see that he is playing for Porto. And hopefully he can carry on that form for Canada in the World Cup. Next up is Belgium, who have an absolute ton of midfielders. Dennis Praet, Saelemaekers, Thorgan Hazard, Hans Vanaken, Trossard, Carrasco, CDK, Yuri Tielemans, Onana, and Axel Witsel, and of course Kevin De Bruyne. We kind of know that De Bruyne's going to start, so that's a given. Witsel could play in defence, but I kind of doubt it. Tielemans probably starts as well, doesn't he, to be fair? So yeah, De Bruyne, Tielemans is probably nailed on. Carrasco maybe off the bench, Trossard maybe off the bench, Vanaken the same, Hazard probably the same, and same as Saelemaekers. Onana's been starting recently. Don't think he starts in the World Cup though. I could be wrong. But yeah, Belgium normally play a 3-4-2-1. If De Bruyne plays as one of those two, there's definitely a chance for 2 other midfielders to start. Tielemans probably being one of them. And then probably Witsel, you'd imagine. Witsel, Onana is probably a toss-up out of those 2. Next up is Japan, who normally play a 4-2-3-1. There's actually some really nice options here, lads, to be honest. Daichi Kamada, Mitoma, Teke Kubo, Endo, Ayo Tanaka, and Ryo Hatate, all absolute ballers. I think they're going to do really well at the World Cup, to be honest. Japan could be that surprise package. Kamada's an absolute player. 0.35 ETH for a rare. Great. Mitoma's obviously at Brighton right now. I wouldn't be paying that amount for him. The best for me, though, is probably Kubo, Teke Kubo, who's playing for Sociedad right now. He used to play for Barca Academy, used to play for Real Madrid Academy. He's only 21 years old. He has an unbelievable left foot. He's an electric dribbler. 0.37 isn't bad at all, I don't think, at 21. Loads of under 23 utility as well. Tanaka's been killing it in the Bundesliga too, to be honest. At 0.168. I don't think that's crazy bad either. We all probably know who Hatate is. But yeah, I can't see him not starting at the World Cup. He's been playing amazingly well for Celtic, and he's at a decent price. Next up is Germany, who normally play a 4-2-3-1. They've got absolutely loads of midfielders as well, lads. You know, I don't need to tell you who Kai Havertz, Musiala, Wirtz, Brandt, Benjamin Hendricks, Kimmich and Hoffman are. I've also forgot Goretzka in there as well. You know, I've put Wirtz in there. I've just seen rumours that he might make the squad if he's fit. They might take him. I'm not sure if Brandt really makes the squad. I've just thrown him in there. I will definitely add Goretzka to this. You know, Musiala is the absolute standout here for me. And of course, his price is going to reflect that. In terms of value, though, I think Hoffman is probably the best value. Does he start for Germany, though? Probably not. But in terms of like utility after, I think he's great. I've loved Hoffman. I used to own him when I had a Champs Europe team. He's so underrated for me. His price is kind of creeped up to where it probably should be. But for a long time, he was so undervalued. Next up is Spain, who normally play a 4-3-3. And again, have an absolute bucket load of midfielders. Pedri, Olmo, Soler, Pino, Busquets, Marcos Llorente, Sarabia, Gavi, Koke. You'd like to think Pedri and Gavi probably play in that midfield three. Alongside who? I don't really know. Busquets? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. Pino's a winger, so you know, he might come on off the bench. I don't even know if he's going to make the squad, to be honest. But yeah, Gavi and Pedri are obviously the standouts. Koke could potentially start alongside him. Marcos Llorente could as well, maybe play right back. Next up is Tunisia, who play a 4-3-1-2. I'll be honest, I don't know a great deal about these two Tunisian midfielders. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to you that I do. So if you want to go and do some research on them, feel free to do so. And in that case, we'll move on to the Danish, who play a 4-3-3. We've got Robert Skov, Daniel Wass, Damsgaard, Eriksson, Jasper Lindstrom, Thomas Delaney. There's some really decent midfielders here, to be honest. Eriksson's playing really well for United. Lindstrom is kind of finding a little bit more form for Frankfurt. He's probably the most talented, I would say, that has a chance to really kick on price-wise to maybe where he was back end of last season. Damsgaard's finding it tough, I'd say, to get minutes at Brentford. Daniel Wass has moved back to the Danish league, I think, and he's playing for Brøndby. And Robert Skov is in and out of the Hoffenheim team. So, yeah, for me, Lindstrom's probably the standout here. In terms of nailed-on starter, obviously Eriksson would be that guy. If you want to pay half an ETH for him, you know, go for it. I'm not sure if I would be spending half an ETH on Eriksson, but to be honest, he's been really, really good for United recently. Next up is Australia, and we have one midfielder in the form of Tom Rogic, who used to play for Celtic, now playing for West Brom. I'm not even 100% sure he's going to make the Australian squad, to be honest, so I just wanted to add him in here, just in case the Australians felt left out. Next up is France, who normally play a 3-4-1-2. Again, a decent amount of midfielders. Kante, Tchouaméni, Guendouzi, Rabiot, and Cuckoo, Camavinga. You know, nailed on. Tchouaméni is the obvious one. You know, you have to spend big money on that. I'm pretty sure Pogba isn't going to be back in time for the World Cup, so definitely chance for Kante. Guendouzi might have a chance of starting. Rabiot's just Rabiot. I've never really rated him, but he always seems to play for France. So the most nailed on is obviously Tchouaméni. He's fitted into that Real Madrid team like a glove, and we're probably looking at one of the best defensive midfielders for the next 10 years, I'd imagine. Next up is Poland, who play a 3-5-2. I was lucky enough to go watch them versus Wales last week, and they were very, very good. They defended very well. In terms of their midfielder options, you've got Zielinski, Szymanski, Krychowiak, Frankowski. Zielinski's nailed on 100%. Szymanski's probably going to come off the bench. If I had to guess, Krychowiak probably starts as well. Frankowski again off the bench. So yeah, Zielinski and Krychowiak are your best bets, but Krychowiak right now is playing in a league that's not covered by Sorare. So if you're buying him, you're only going to get World Cup utility out of him. Is it worth it? Maybe at the price he's at. Potentially, I don't know. You'd have to work that out for yourself. I personally wouldn't do it, but if I'm desperate for a midfielder, you know, for the World Cup only, then he could definitely be an option. But Zielinski probably ticks all the boxes: midweek utility, World Cup utility, and of course utility for Napoli. Szymanski is a baller, don't get me wrong. He's been in and out of the final team. Don't think he starts for Poland either. But he's got a sweet left foot and he can definitely get you DAs. Next up is Mexico, who play a 4-3-3. There's a couple midfield options here: Gutierrez, Hector Herrera, and Edison Alvarez. Alvarez is probably the most standout. He almost got a move to Chelsea in the summer, but still at Ajax. 0.7 ETH for a rare. Pretty pricey, I would say, especially now that he isn't under 23 eligible and he doesn't get that many decisives. So I'm not sure if I would be touching that personally. Eric Gutierrez is in and out of the PSV team, but he does start for Mexico. So if you think that he could potentially start for PSV after the World Cup, then you know there could be scope to sort of buying into him. Herrera is playing for Houston Dynamo, but with a 0L5, he must be injured, I'd imagine, or he's just not getting a game, which isn't great for him either way. So yeah, not a ton of options there, to be honest. Next up is Argentina, who normally go with a 4-3-3. A load of midfielder options here: Paredes, Rodrigo de Paul, Thiago Almada, Papu Gomez, Ezequiel Palacios, Angel Di Maria, Down here, we've got Enzo Fernandez, Giovanni Lo Celso. I think De Paul starts. I think Paredes starts. Papu Gomez probably goes for experience. Palacios is a solid player, but it looks like he's injured again. Hamstring. Di Maria definitely starts for Argentina, I'd have to say, but there's nothing crazy here that stands out to me. You know, like long-term wise, Almada and Enzo are obviously the ones that stand out to me. In terms of the more established players, I mean, De Paul for 0.62 isn't terrible. Next up is the US, who also play a 4-3-3. Some really talented young players here. This is one thing I like about the US team, and I am going to be lucky enough to be watching them versus Wales in that first group stage game at the World Cup. Musa, Aronson, McKennie, Reina, Adams. Some really, really talented players here. I like the look of all of them. McKennie doesn't have under 23 eligibility anymore, but, you know, he definitely started the World Cup for the US. So does Tyler Adams because he's so reliable. You just never know what you're going to get with Reina right now, popping in and out with injuries. Musa's been really, really good recently for Valencia, so that's something to keep an eye on. And Aronson's done really well in the Prem, so I'm not sure who's going to actually miss out here, to be honest. Aronson could potentially play on the wing, and you could go with Adams, McKennie, and Musa in the midfield. But then that's leaving out Reina. I don't really know who the three is going to be, to be honest. I think McKennie and Adams are nailed on. And then it's a case of, you know, who plays out of Reina, Musa and Aronson. We've got one Welsh midfielder, and it's the legend that is Aaron Ramsey, currently playing for Nice in League One. He definitely starts if he's fit. It's probably going to be his last and only World Cup, I'd have to imagine. He'll probably play in the next Euros if we qualify. I mean, at his price, it's not bad. He's currently injured, of course. So you'd be buying him at a low, but I do think you will get utility out of him at the World Cup. Next up is England, who normally play a 3-4-2-1. And you can basically buy their best two midfielders right now in Jude Bellingham and Declan Rice. You know, they're both very expensive, of course, but probably the most two nailed on players in that England side right now. They don't fill me with confidence when I watch them. I'm not an England fan, so I'm not looking to be filled with confidence. The fact that you can buy Rice and Bellingham on Sorare is pretty cool, I think. Of course, Henderson as well, but having a bit of a tough time right now at Liverpool. Rice and Bellingham would be the only two players I'd be looking at here, to be honest. Next up is Ecuador, who normally play a 4-3-3. There's two midfielders that you can buy on Sorare right now that'll potentially be at the World Cup, and they include Jose Cifuentes and Alexander Alvarado. This Alvarado fella has been on an absolute heater all season. I'm pretty sure the Ecuadorian league is coming to an end because I don't think he would be that price if it weren't. But yeah, L15 is 61. I think he's a midfielder that plays up front. But Cifuentes, playing in the MLS for LAFC, seems to peak very well in terms of his scores. He'll either score like 100 or like 30. But a very explosive midfielder that does get DAs as well. And has decent AA as well at times. Playing for one of the better teams, of course, in the MLS. He might potentially move, though, because there was Premier League clubs sniffing around him this summer. Whether he moves, like I said, is unknown. But definitely a very, very good player. Next up is Senegal. We've got Papa Gueye and Idrissa Gana Gueye. Gueye's back at Everton. He could be a decent threshold player for you. Papa Gueye is in and out of the Marseille team. I wouldn't really bank on him, to be honest. He might start at the World Cup though. Idrissa Gueye definitely starts at the World Cup, and he seems to be nailed on for Everton as well. So yeah, I don't think you're going to win any cards with Idrissa Gueye, but I definitely think he could be a decent threshold player. And last but not least, we have the Netherlands. Four midfielders: Kenneth Taylor, Koopmeiners, Davy Klaassen, and Frankie de Jong. Frankie de Jong definitely starts for me. Taylor, Klaassen, and Koopmeiners have very good chances to start. You could add Gravenberch into here, but I'm not 100% sure he's going to make that World Cup squad. He might, but it's been tough for him at Bayern Munich in terms of game time. And Van Gaal's obviously going to want to take players who are playing for their club. Kenneth Taylor's one of them, Klaassen's one of them, and so is Koopmeiners. He's been really good for Atalanta. But yeah, de Jong's the standout here for me. Taylor is an absolute baller. If you haven't watched him play, you need to see how good this kid is. Koopmeiners as well is a decent shout. It looks like he's injured right now, head injury. So yeah, I imagine he'll be fine for the World Cup, but definitely a decent enough champion Europe midfielder. Okay lads, I hope you did enjoy that video. I hope you took something from it. If you did enjoy it, please do leave a comment below. It does mean a lot to me. And also if you do leave a like on the video, that equally means as much. Have a great day, and I shall see you guys in the next video.